We've been warning for weeks that the Trump administration's dangerous, sensationalized operations are a threat to our public safety, that someone was going to get hurt. Just yesterday, I said exactly that. What we're seeing is the consequences of governance designed to generate fear, headlines, and conflict. It's governing by reality TV, and today that recklessness cost someone their life.
That was a somber Governor Tim Walz yesterday after an ICE agent shot and killed a woman on the streets of Minneapolis. Good morning and welcome to Way Too Early. I'm Ali Vitale on this Thursday, January 8th, and we're going to start with that news in Minneapolis, where emotions are running high after that fatal shooting yesterday morning. The Minnesota Star Tribune identified the victim as Renee Nicole Good, a local resident, after speaking to her mother. Good was shot in the head in a residential neighborhood south of downtown during an immigration crackdown. The chaotic incident was recorded by several witnesses, and we're going to take you through what happened step by step. But I also want to warn you that this video is really disturbing, and we don't yet know what happened before the video started rolling. But we'll start here. You'll immediately see a gray SUV speed off and a gray truck pull up to the left side of the maroon SUV. Two officers, you see them there, get out of the truck. They approach the SUV, with one of them pulling on the driver's door handle. The driver then puts the car in reverse, appearing to try to turn away, and that's when another officer approaches the front of the vehicle. You then see the officer in front of the car fire a shot into the windshield, and as the driver continues to turn right, he fires two more shots into the driver's side window as the car moves past officers. The driver accelerates and moments later crashes into two cars parked near the curb and a light pole. It's not clear from these videos if the vehicle makes contact with the officer, and there is no indication of whether the woman had interactions with ICE agents earlier. After the shooting, the agent who fired walks to the vehicle, then walks away and tells other agents to call 911. I want to bring in now live from Minneapolis, MS Now reporter Nnamdi Egwuonwu. Nnamdi, want to start with this story and where the investigation goes next. Where do things stand and what are you looking for?
Well, Ali, we know that the FBI, the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehensions, are supposedly jointly leading this investigation. And the ICE agent involved here, according to Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, is spending time with his family, though it's unclear if that means he was removed from duty as this pens investigation. But one of the things we're going to be watching for here is how this investigation proceeds, and it continues to be managed by both federal and state officials, and they have drastically different views so far about what happened here. We already have federal officials led at this point by President Trump asserting that this is an act of self-defense, a claim that we all know Mayor Jacob Frey, Governor Tim Walz have said is flat out not true. So how that dispute plays out and how it affects this investigation will certainly be something we're keeping an eye on.
Yeah, and we're going to talk a little bit more deeply about the Trump administration's response. I think it's shocking that so immediately they're able to say, no, this was self-defense and just fully take the part of the ICE officers, especially when those videos make it seem like we don't have enough context at this point to know that that is for sure what happened. Instead, you heard someone in one of those videos that I was watching say, what did you do? And you can just feel almost the gut punch, not just to the people who were taking that video and who were there on the scene, but then also to all of us now who are watching it and just trying to metabolize what is going on here. Can you talk to us about the folks in that community, what residents are telling you, not just about what happened, but how they're reacting? I know that there were peaceful protests throughout the night.
Yeah. Ali, two domineering themes, I've encountered as I've been here. One, there is anger. There's frustration here. I've had conversations with some of the people still at the site of this shooting who have pointed out that there's something about the idea of outside agents coming in and causing this sort of devastation that really enrages the community here. But community is also a central theme. I don't know if you can see behind me, but people here have erected these two barriers on both sides of the road where this shooting took place. And they're doing so to almost make it a sanctuary, a safe space. There's two vigils dedicated to the victim of this shooting. There are people here still passing out coffee and pizza, even though it is very early in the morning, and there have still been people trickling in here. I spoke to someone who said they drove hours just to visit this spot, which I will remind you is still has remnants of this shooting. Someone walked me through it and showed me where you can still see splatters of blood on the road. So very much so, there's anger, there's frustration, but there's also real community here, and Minnesotans, specifically those in Minneapolis, coming together to protest what they feel was an unjust shooting.
Minneapolis here once again finding themselves at the epicenter of a national conversation. We saw it, of course, several years ago after the murder of George Floyd. Now, of course, we are watching the national conversation around the Trump administration's efforts with ICE fall here again for Minnesotans. I wonder what you expect to see in the hours ahead. And because folks are still behind you passing out pizza, trying to keep this vigil very active even in these early hours, what they say they plan on doing in the coming hours and days?
Well, we know the protests are going to continue. You know, we're hearing reports that there's going to be another demonstration later this morning at a local ICE headquarters here. And to your point, a point that's been emphasized to me by people here is that this is happening all just miles away from where George Floyd was murdered. So, you know, this is a community that is not only used to this sort of devastation, is not only used to this sort of frustration, but is used to having this specific president target them over their protests of this of shootings that they feel are unjust. So there are some, I've spoken to people who are concerned that this could continue to potentially spiral out of control and there could be a repeat. But I also just spoke to someone who wanted to emphasize that they don't want to see a media narrative that people here are burning and looting and rioting. They emphasize that during yesterday's demonstration where thousands of people came into this street, you didn't hear of arrests. There weren't these stories of buildings burnt down. And they want that to be the focus, that the people here are coming together to continue to speak out, to continue to protest in a way that is similar to what we saw years ago in the aftermath of George Floyd's death. But they're doing so in a way that, that as Tim Walz directed them, isn't going to potentially incite the federal government into responding with even more of a federal law enforcement presence.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned, A, the fact that these protests have been peaceful, and then B, the way that Governor Tim Walz has urged folks, yes, please keep up the advocacy, please keep up showing up in these communities, but do so peacefully, because looming over all of this, you're right, is the ways that the Trump administration has, in some cases, without what courts have ultimately found to be sufficient reason to send in federal troops, have done so, and that looms over if they could do it here in light of what has happened now on the ground. MS Now reporter Nnamdi Egwuonwu live from Minneapolis with us. Thank you for starting us off this morning and giving us the latest from the ground.